As one of the most hit anime of the year, there were tons of things you probably missed. That's why in this list, we'll go over 10 things you might have missed out on about Solo Leveling. Number 10. To start off the list, did you know there are tons of references to other anime and even shows within the series? For example, in episode 9, when facing off against the infamous B-rank assassin Kang, Jinwoo warmed up by doing the Goku jumps. Another example that might have flown over your head entirely is his daily quest details. With him having to do 100 of each workout and the 10-kilometer run, it is the exact same as Saitama from One Punch Man. Finally, and probably the most hidden of all, is the Marvel references throughout the series. Firstly, in chapter 46 of the manhwa, we can see Iron Man looking at Jinwoo's new appearance alongside the other school kids. It doesn't stop here, however, with more references in the next chapter where we can see Spider-Man and other references like billboards writing One Piece or Disney. Number 9. Next, did you know that there are two different versions of Solo Leveling entirely, with the manhwa portraying Japan as an evil country using its hunters for its own benefit? There was a bit of a switch up in the anime. See, in Japan, character names like Jinwoo Sung were changed to Shun Mizushino, a Japanese name. Not only did his name change, but there was an entirely different voice actor, meaning there were two Japanese voice actors just for his character. You might think this was the only one, but it didn't stop here, with other characters like Cha Hae-in being changed to Kosaka Shizuku or Yu Jin-ho being changed to Kenta Morobishi. All of these characters also had a different voice actor, as well as to make the Japanese version completely different. It is speculated that the reason Solo Leveling took so long to get an adaptation is because of the way Japan is portrayed in the manhwa, making it a risky topic for a company to animate. Number 8. Next up, we have a spin-off series of Solo Leveling that you might not even know existed. With the series being so popular but the manhwa coming to an end, the author wanted to keep the series alive despite this. This is why he created Solo Leveling Ragnarok, a spin-off series that takes place years after the end of the original series, when Jinru already has children. Much like Boruto, it follows the son of Jinru living his life as a hunter and becoming stronger. Although you might not have heard about this, it actually started airing all the way back in April of 2023, so it's got over 200 chapters to read already. The only downside to this is that it's currently a web novel with no adaptation as a manhwa, but it is set to release sometime in 2024. Number 7. Next, let's look at how Solo Leveling performed on sites like Crunchyroll compared to other anime. With the first episode of the anime breaking various records on Crunchyroll, it had one of the best, if not the best, debuts of all time. For comparison, even the Gear 5 episode of Luffy didn't hold a candle to Solo Leveling. It doesn't stop here, however, with episode 1 crashing Crunchyroll servers because of how high in demand the episode was. Some fans reported that it took over 10 hours to even see the first episode, showing just how big of a fan base there really is. This might make Solo Leveling seem like the best anime ever, but what if I told you it also has the most disliked episode out of all of Crunchyroll as well? Number 6. After episode 7 aired, fans were hyped for what was to come, expecting another amazing episode, but as many of you know, it was a recap episode. With this taking so much hype away from the series, it was so hated that episode 7.5 actually became the most disliked episode on Crunchyroll ever. With over 75,000 dislikes on Crunchyroll and climbing, it may claim the title of the most disliked episode of all time. You might think this is the worst that can happen, but believe it or not, even Mr. Beast was angry with this recap episode. He said, "Not surprised. This show is amazing, and when I saw the new episode was filler, it actually made me depressed for a few minutes." With so much backlash from this episode, I think they definitely made up for it with the episodes following this. With the series being a modern-day masterpiece, what is your favorite fight within Solo Leveling? Let me know down in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe as you do. Number 5. For the next topic, let's transition over to the game that has recently come out. Before we talk about its differences, let me give you a rundown of how it works first. It's much like the Danmachi game that came out years back, where you collect characters and weapons to fight various enemies or monsters. Although it seems amazing near the start, if I'm being honest, it gets kind of boring once you play it for a few hours. Regardless, there are various changes within the game that aren't in the anime. For example, Jinwoo's first class change is to be an assassin, which is followed by being a Dark Lord. Despite these seeming to fit his character within the anime, he never becomes either of these classes, with him achieving the Necromancer class only to instantly have it level up to become the Shadow Monarch. Number 4. Although the anime is close to perfect, there were a lot of changes made from the manhwa to make such a well-written anime. For example, within the light novel, the Kartanon Temple, or more commonly known as a double dungeon, the statues and figures were vaguely described. It barely entailed the large details, including how the statues had just enough instruments to be played, or even what they looked like. This evolved into the manhwa, with it depicting the statues in an overgrown, old-looking fashion. I think the manhwa did a great job of making the statues look old and worn out, like they have been waiting for someone to come for a long time. While this may be the case in the anime, there is no overgrowth on the statues, giving them a more clean look. Overall, because of all the changes, it ended up coming out perfectly, showing just how much of a part creativity can have in changing a vibe entirely. Number 3. Up next, we have the changes in the Jeju Island arc being introduced much earlier in the anime than the manhwa. See, although it has been an underlying plot that the more powerful hunters have been worried about since the start in the manhwa, it wasn't like this. Although there were small mentions of the Jeju Island arc, it really didn't start being talked about at all until around chapter 70. This may be a shock to many of you, with it being one of the main foreshadowing events, but that's one thing the anime did well compared to the manhwa. In the manhwa, there is a lot of content and it's great overall, but they miss out on lots of character building. With the showcase of this arc beforehand, it starts to build hype, all the while showing the tragedies that the other hunters faced earlier despite being S ranks. Number 2. Like I said in the previous topic, the introduction of the Jeju Island arc really helped build the characters, but what if I told you there was much more than you thought? For example, the loved and famous hunter Cha Hae-in was introduced as early as episode 1 of the anime, with her saving someone from a petty thief. In the manhwa, however, she wasn't introduced until as late as chapter 65. This would put her character all the way back near the Jeju Island raid, and when Jinwoo is already super powerful. Another example, as I said previously, the Jeju Island arc characters. See, the leader of the Hunters Guild, Choi Jong, didn't get much character building in the manhwa until later on, but in the anime he had his own flashback from the Jeju Island raid. This not only shows the horrors of the island, but also the fact that even S-rank hunters can get afraid from their jobs despite being so strong. Number 1. Last but not least, we have the foreshadowing of Jinwoo becoming the strongest hunter of all. Now, this might be pretty obvious to most people, but the entire story is a big foreshadowing of the events to come. With Jinwoo being ridiculed and called the weakest hunter to ever exist throughout the beginning of the series, it makes his rise to fame all the more enjoyable. Whether it is him being called the weakest hunter of all time or other foreshadowing events that lead to his success, it was written out perfectly. Imagine if the introduction of the daily quest was never made and he simply leveled up. He would probably be dead already. For example, during his fight with Kong, he used the full recovery reward, or when he was surrounded by knights in his job change class, it foreshadowed near the beginning that he thought he could do the daily quest later. As many of you know, however, it was this very quest that saved him, thus allowing him to become even stronger. You might call it luck, but I see it as a sign from the writer and higher being within the series, foreshadowing that he isn't at his full strength just yet. Well, that wraps up the list. Let me know if there was anything related to solo leveling that you think I missed down in the comments section. As always, if you've enjoyed the video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe while you're at it to continue seeing content like this. See ya!